So you said you prepared some questions for us. Do you want to start with those?
Yeah, go
All
ahead,
right, sure.
Danielle.
Yeah, Peter, you want to start or?
If you want, I could. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
uh, well, first of all, since I mean, I saw the website, it looks great. But apart from that, we don't know each other a lot. So, uh, I really would be interested to hear how the Museum of Solar Energy kind of began the idea. So we kind of found out that you like to collect solar artifacts, but how did it really shift from a hobby to a big information hub about solar energy and a whole, exhibition? And along the way, I guess, what connections did you make about the development of solar, particularly in northern southern climates, and what were perhaps main struggles in this process of converting it from just interest to something on a new level?
Yeah. So the museum has kind of just started out as just a personal interest in solar from when I was a kid. I got a solar car kit, and it was really fun just to play around with that. And it was amazing, like how much energy you could get just from ordinary sunlight.
Mhm.
And that really kind of sparked my interest in just math and science and so on. Um, the problem was that it was really hard to get a hold of anything solar, especially up in Minnesota. There's
Mhm.
just not really, you can't, back when I got interested in it, you couldn't really just go buy a solar panel. So resorted to buying stuff on eBay and got lots of really interesting solar cells from that during that time. Like there's ones from old satellites in the 1960s, and that's kind of how the collection got started, was just me trying to get solar cells, period, and then ending up with some really interesting ones. So like there was ones I had from the International Space Station for one that was meant for that, and um, I thought that was really interesting. So I was like, huh, like I want
Mhm.
to learn more about this. But then realizing there was no resources, it's like, well, I guess I'll start that resource.
That's awesome. So how like what kind of people did you have to talk to? Like how did you start that resource, I guess? Because that's a pretty cool thing.
Um, yeah, so I have a background in also like web development and photography. So that's
Mhm.
really starting, and also one of my friends also works in web development professionally. So just kind of combining that, and it's really just a self-run project at this point.
That's pretty sweet.
Wow.
Yeah, we've
Wow.
we've been contacted by a few museums to get like a traveling exhibit going, and that's probably the next step is
Mhm.
taking the artifacts and making them into something that can be transported and sent to people for their exhibits. Right
Mhm.
now, it's primarily just online, but Carl's a talented photographer, so it helps that he's got that skill set.
Yeah, that definitely adds to the experience. Well, at least for us when we visited. Uh, So, but as I guess a general trend, I see that we see that we've progressed from a hobby to kind of a reputable someone in the area information dispenser. I mean, how I found it as I typed solar into the Google search, and that's the first thing that comes up, all the blog, all the articles,
Oh,
etc.
cool.
Right?
That's
And
really cool.
yeah, and
Super cool.
so in what ways has that helped to spread, the discussion about solar energy? And I guess what trends, what impact have you been seeing and what impact have you tried to bring to others in that spreading information?
Um, I guess so far it hasn't had a huge impact that I've seen, or I haven't gotten tons of feedback, I guess, back from it.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure necessarily who or what is interacting with the website at this time, really.
Um,
So like,
we, I,
I
I
know,
would like to stop you and say that since we've started the website, we've had a lot of inquiries. But it's sometimes it's just people looking to add solar to an RV and they want resources. Sometimes it's museums looking for artifacts for their exhibits. Sometimes it's people trying to donate things to the museum. We've had a lot of people try to provide artifacts. Um, so I would say that it gives people an outlet to bring these things that they had no idea where to take them.
I think that's kind of exactly what we were looking for, because when we were thinking about it, those are the types of impacts that this thing can really create in such a unique way. Because when you think about it, what you've created is something that people can go to and say, just like, oh, solar is pretty cool, I guess. And I feel like when we think about solar energy, we think about like, how are we going to save the world, or how am I going to save energy? But like, it's a piece of technology that can take sunlight and make energy out of it. Like and also the fact that you've had like a collection, and you have these pieces from satellites. It's just something that can make people look at it and say that it's really cool. And I think that, I guess, playing on that aspect is something that is really important and really unique that you've kind of just given to uh, everybody, I guess.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great to hear that.
and going off of that, well, I see that you have a whole comprehensive, now blog that keeps you going on articles. What would you say if you were to summarize, the dissipation of information that you provided? Which would you say of these posts are the most important or the most influential? If someone was looking at solar, wanted to find out how to do something, how to progress further beyond the amateur, level, well, what would be the most important resource you provide, or what will they need to know?
I think that resource is in progress.
Uh,
Karl wants to make a blog post about how to make a solar cell from scratch using organic materials. And right now that doesn't exist anywhere. You can't really find a tutorial to build your own solar technology. Is that a fair, Karl?
That's the one that's most interesting to me, is making a solar cell from scratch. That was kind of also one of the sparks for this, is just kind of going down the path of how to actually make a solar cell. Since it's very hard to actually find information like do this step, then this step to make one.
So I think
but
yeah.
out of the current articles, the one that I've been referencing the most to people is just how to install solar on your home and what to look for. So that article is the one that I've used the most, just as like a daily reference, I guess.
Okay, so this next question kind of has to do with that one, and you kind of almost already answered it, because you're talking a lot about like building it for yourself, installing it for yourself, really just giving opportunities to get into solar to people who would normally not have them. We were going to ask if you had an opinion about any of the like disparities between like the residential, like the installations in the solar power, in like privileged and underserved communities. And we were gonna ask if you're like gonna try and like work on anything to sort of like close that gap. And like you've basically been answering that you're already on that type of discussion with making solar a lot more like almost homemade, and that's sick. That's awesome.
Yeah, part of the reason that we're doing a lot of things online too, or online first approach with the museum, is just so that it's accessible to everyone. So anyone in the world that has an internet connection can go check it out. And I figured that was a lot easier than having a museum in some random location and having to travel there.
And it's free. Like you can get all this information for free.
I like that a lot. That's awesome.
But concretely, do you think that this whole disparity, of cheap of, let's say, somewhat cheap renewable solar that exists right now, and people not knowing about it, or not, it's not getting to residential, how would you say, what role do you play in that bridging your gap?
I don't think we necessarily do tons on that type of, or that part of it. There's another company in our local region called Equilibrium 3, and that's what they primarily deal with, is trying to help underserved communities. They just installed a 40 kilowatt solar array to serve for veterans, and then they provide the power for them.
Yeah, so their approach to the disparity is to fund the program using grant money and then benefit the people around them. So they do large community solar gardens with funds that they've either gathered through fundraising or grant writing, and then they deliver that power to people to reduce their utility costs. So in one case, they were benefiting like the urban housing project. In this other one, it was funding veterans. So they're using the credit that they're gaining in the solar garden to help groups that are like not as financially stable, I guess.
That's
And
awesome. We'll look into that.
yeah, for sure. That sounds like a very interesting provider and project as well. Uh, but still, though, I mean, though we have already planned most of our Southwest research, we at the same time we want to think about what to do when we come back to the DC area. We have already contacted some companies, etc. But from your perspective, since you, I mean, since from just I guess one increase into spreading that information, you would know a lot about it. Is there, I guess, anything you think that you would like to see them to expand uh, the installation of solar and the spread of solar at the local residential
Oh,
level?
and just for context, we were kind of planning on like making a program or kind of a club at NCS, at like NCS and STA, which are the schools that we go to. Um, and we were kind of just thinking of sort of like referencing some of the articles that you've written, and Miss Shinde, is that how, am I mispronouncing her name? Um, she's on your website. She's written an article about like material science and
Yeah, that's Anaketa.
what?
Anaketa.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Shinde. Anaketa Shinde. Yeah.
Yeah, Shinde. Sorry, I didn't mean to like. I thought I mispronounced her name. Okay.
That's good. We use first names. You're using all our
Yeah,
last
I'm
names.
sorry. I just want to be really respectful because
We go to a boys' school, so.
yeah. So we were planning on referencing a few of your articles because we just thought they were really interesting. And do you have any like preferences on stuff that we should reference to kind of create the most interest? For example, like we could reference Machina's article on like material science if someone is looking to know like how do solar panels like work, like what is like the science behind it. And then also we can try and reference some of your articles about like, I don't know, like solar panels like in the home, or maybe like talk about the benefits of adding solar to your home, or like why solar is like so cool on a much more like general scale. So do you have any like preferences or like opinions on what you think you would kind of add the most interest in these types of things?
We have a limited number of articles that are already published, so anything you find that's interesting is great.
Well, they're all interesting and they're all great.
Great, good, glad. We're hoping to produce more. We haven't, the library is not super huge yet, so if you find something interesting, feel free to use it.
All right, cool.
With regard to helping the disparity, one thing we've noticed in our area is that buying solar panels new are a huge capital expense.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people it's a hurdle to purchase solar, especially because the payback is really long.
Yeah, we've noticed that kind of trend.
Yeah, but there is a guy in our area who's selling secondhand solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely reduces the overhead for the actual product cost. The labor is still extremely expensive, but the product cost can be reduced by using secondhand product. And they still produce a lot of power.
So would you say
huge.
it's still effective at the current technology rates? Okay.
That's huge, because we were looking at that, and we figured out that was probably one of the main causes of disparity, the sheer cost of the installation and like purchasing the technology itself. So the fact that there are people like that, that's awesome. That's huge.
Yeah, you can apparently buy truckloads of them in California.
Yeah.
but when you're talking about the disparity, so the initial capital cost of the product and labor is really expensive. A lot of the time, the regulations affect who can connect to the grid. So I cannot personally connect my solar panels to the grid. I have to hire a professional, and that professional is $150 an hour. And that's a huge overhead, right? So if there was a program that allowed homeowners to connect to the grid at a more affordable cost, that would be huge.
So would you say that's because of the shortage of professionals or because of the shortage of licensed professionals?
I think it could be that there is a shortage in labor professionals, correct? Like
Okay.
licensed electricians and plumbers, we need more trades, and therefore those are expensive.
And would you, from what angle would you would you be looking to expand that? The governmental side or public-private partnership, or just making more or encouraging perhaps more local private companies installers? What would you say would be the most effective in that?
I don't know. Incentives would be interesting. When we got solar, we had a local incentive and a federal incentive. And since then, both have been reduced, so it's harder for people to get solar. It would be interesting if there was a job with the local utility whose job was to connect to the grid so that that was no longer a cost of the homeowner. There's a lot of leasing programs that are available in Southwest United States so that someone else installs solar in your house and someone else pays the capital expense and then the homeowner pays a monthly fee. That's not available here.
So essentially, it's the utility plus private, as it's that integration that's faltering.
That's one piece of many.
Yeah, for sure.
Every piece is expensive, and so they add up to a lot.
Okay, and you'd want to minimize every step. Okay.
Right, and there's another. So in the interviews, I learned a lot about how the public utility or private utility offers people reimbursement for the solar they create, the power they create. Here in Minnesota, we're lucky so that when we sell power to the grid, they pay us a fair amount. In other states like Michigan, and I think Montana and Wisconsin, they don't have a fair compensation for the power they generate. So when they buy power from the grid, they're paying like sometimes 10 times more than if they sell power to the grid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense for them because if they sell power to the grid, they're actually paying 10 times more for the power they buy back.
And is that also a regulation problem?
That's all regulation. That problem where it doesn't make sense to sell to the grid because they're getting the regulation is not in their favor.
I mean, and a lot of the times it's also up to local government, that the local grid section to ensure that regulation.
Right now, it's up to each state.
Well, yeah, but definitely not. I mean, federal couldn't do it. You'd have to do it specifically based on region, right, and provider.
On state, yeah, because providers cross over between many states often.
Yeah.
And so cities can't really have the regulations as much because the provider may span over many areas.
Okay, yeah, maybe something we could try and do is kind of just like, I don't know, raise awareness to those kinds of things and maybe trying to advocate for change on just a state level or something.
Yeah, when you're talking about disparity, I think part of it is making sure that the grid, integrating with the grid is in the favor of the person installing solar. And in many states, that's not true.
Right, because it's really easy to just sit behind I don't know, a project and be like, oh, you should get solar, but even when it's not advantageous. So that's a really good point. That's something that we should really try and like look at, and it's going to be a lot harder to like address because it's just state government thing, but it's really important that we take that kind of thing into account and just
Yeah.
try and advocate for change.
Yeah, I thought it was an issue with the capital expense. I thought it was an
Mhm.
issue with the product itself not working in that climate. It had nothing to do with that. It was all about
Mm,
the the discrepancy between how much they're getting paid for solar and how much they're paying for power. And that was enough of a deterrent.
Mhm. But I mean, even though there are these policy kind of, I guess, withhold and inhibitions, still, I mean, in the recent 10 years, the technology behind the whole solar market has really soared. And I guess from your perspective, how has that recently developed? How have the new technologies grown? And from this, I guess, advancement, how could that be applied practically? Maybe with regulators and a symbiosis, maybe just by itself, uh, to, I guess, spread that residential solar or small time business, solar, just make it cheap and flexible, than more so than it is now.
It was really around like 2009 is when Taiwan and China started producing solar panels. And that's really what, from my understanding, has been the driver for lowering the cost of solar. Since
Mhm.
the production globally has relatively remained the same, it was really just that influx of production that really brought down the cost. So that's why 10 years ago there wasn't much still in solar and it was still very expensive. So I think that was the main reason for it.
So it's just basically an overproduction scenario.
Reduced production cost
Well, yeah,
Mhm.
because
and scale. Yeah.
uh, I don't know. Does battery technology could that be another alternative? Developing battery technology to have the to, I guess, hold solar out of the grid. Well, that's not a good long-term solution because I mean, you'd want to be secure with the grid in most places, in case something goes wrong, right? So
So
it's autonomous, with this technology in some climates is already possible. And in that case, how could that be implemented, and
right.
in what cases would it make sense?
So the solar installers in Michigan said that their customers, because they're unfair disadvantage with the grid payment, a lot of customers were opting for batteries. But
Mhm.
batteries are an additional 10, 12 grand for the project.
mm,
So again, it's an elite status thing. If you have money, you can stay off the grid. If you don't have money, you need to sell your power back for a reduced rate.
Mhm. I see.
So it was definitely favoring people who have the funds to buy the batteries.
right.
Mhm.
Then I think maybe that needs to be an important part of, I guess, like the solar discussion. Because I think maybe like one of the main selling points of solar on a surface level, when people, I guess, think of solar, is like, I don't know, its availability. Because and on a hypothetical like level, anybody who has a roof can have a solar panel. But when we actually like get down to it, is it really practical? Is it really effective for people to be getting solar panels, especially people who might actually like need a source of energy or a source of income from that kind of energy?
Right. And when we were in the American Made Solar Prize, there were a lot of competing products that
Mhm.
were trying to eliminate all the steps for installation. So they were taking solar panels and attaching a 3-prong outlet to it and plugging it into the wall and running electricity back through the house in the opposite direction. They were trying to eliminate all of the infrastructure you need to attach solar to your house in the current system. It was scary for us because that's not something you could do in our area because our houses couldn't handle that.
Mhm.
But they're trying to eliminate all the electrical steps and the attachment to the grid and all this stuff. They're trying to make a resilient option. So that was products that are currently being developed.
So
I
I'm
see.
seeing kind of like a trend that like people are like you are really like combating, I guess, the disparity with, where it's kind of just like a homemade solution, or you're really cracking down on the problem of access. And I think that's really amazing. Just like making products, you can tell that like that kind of thing is something someone make just like because they want to see communities like thrive. And I think that's a really good thing.
It also is a very portable solution.
Mhm.
Solar is very permanent, and a lot of people are transient, and so it doesn't work for them.
Mm.
Yeah, but to if people do try to break away from regulators in the grid, is our battery an absolute price ceiling, or is there any possibility for developing cheaper technology so people could partially just subsist? Because we see, I mean, horrible power outages, in Texas, stuff like that, and people eventually lose faith in the grid. And if some policies in some areas, in theory, they should be updated and people do incentives, but that's not always the case in practice. If it does make more sense and just extremely favorable climate to go with that option, then what steps would you take? Or are there any, I guess, automation procedures to combine the battery and the panel?
You can technically combine them, but solar likes to stay cold, so anything that attaches onto the solar panel, you want to keep that off of there,
Hmm.
just because any type of heat from the panel, or just like during the day, it actually lowers the efficiency of it. So generally, that's why they try to even keep like a space under the panel to let airflow go through it to keep those temperatures down. So um, I don't think there'd be really any gains from combining the two products. Batteries are just inherently expensive in whatever form.
Yeah. We
What I've seen though, there's one company that's developing a flywheel system. So basically, it runs this like a flywheel generator during the day when your solar's running, and if there's like an intermittent power outage, it can keep going and kind of like smooth out the fluctuations like of a cloud passing by or something, so that you can keep power during the day. So it's kind of like a very short term solution for electricity without batteries. And that's currently in development. I'm not sure if they have a planned launch date or not.
That was another competitor in the solar prize, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So they're basically trying to use solar panels as a consistent source of power when you have light.
Oh,
And do you envision like a longer term generator solution? Because people, I mean, in cases like that, people could just stock up, in gallons of gas and keep it running. Is there a similar possibility with solar?
hydrogen would be an option. Like if there's a home hydrogen system, um, fuel cells are actually getting pretty cheap now, and there's now able to even get them into like the Toyota Mirai car. So they're coming down in price. So it would be possible to have some sort of longer term storage that you could like take all your solar energy, bank it into hydrogen, and then convert it back later. That would be one potential option. And that might, I mean, right now it would be more expensive than batteries, but I could see that cost coming down at some point.
We've also discussed a type of battery that doesn't involve, fancy chemicals, like a water tower
Hmm.
with a um, with a not a fan but a blade that
Generator, yeah.
a generator, so that the water goes up during the day when the sun is out and comes down at night, and it's enough that could sustain a household.
Would that
Um,
have to be a major tower though? Like they have those mega infrastructure projects, or could it be a smaller? Would it still be efficient as a smaller solution?
That can't really say. I thought I remember in Hawaii they were talking about some small houses were doing that type of thing.
yeah, it
Mm.
doesn't have to be a right now. So we visited Hawaii and they rely on solar, but the batteries are a huge expense that nobody can afford.
Mhm.
And so they were struggling with how to maintain power at night. And so the batteries lasted about a couple hours. And that was enough to get you to bedtime. But they were desperate for another solution for batteries because their power is so expensive off the grid that it makes sense to have solar. Everybody, it makes sense to have solar. Um, but they couldn't figure out a good battery alternative.
Well,
Yeah, well, that kind of reminds that kind of like it sort of reminds me of how I first like got into solar. Um, Basically, we visit my mom's family's from Zimbabwe, so we visit there every like 2 years or so. And there's like a military coup a couple years ago. So when the new government came in, um, there was a weird transition of power, and like when it came to like coal mines and energy and stuff on the grid, it kind of got like super like messed up. um so when I arrived there, we didn't have power from 4 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. So like it was pretty rough. And also like it was something that I thought was kind of scummy, was that we always had power when there's a soccer game on or something like that, or a rugby game, because I feel like if it was it's basically the government trying to say like, oh, if we don't televise these things, if we don't give people power to watch them, then they're actually going to be mad at us or something. And I got pretty mad at that. And along with like not having hot water to shower or stuff like that, um, I just missed having power. And then my mother, what she did was um, like she bought solar panels, and I think she bought a backup generator or something like that. And I'm not sure, it was a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure how everything worked. I'm not sure whether they actually have some kind of battery, or if they like sell to the grid. But I just remember taking like my first like actual shower in like 2 weeks, and it was pretty good. So I think that I guess it sort of connects back to like the website that that you guys made. The fact that you guys have that kind of information out there for free, where people can kind of like be educated on that kind of thing for free, um, and sort of get into the world of solar is really cool, because I do have experience with an area where we don't always have uh, a lot of the stuff that we have here. So I have an experience with the amount, or with the massive impact that solar can have on that.
Oh, that's a cool experience, or cool experience to draw from.
Yeah.
Solar is a lifesaver, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just one question. Sorry to be so misinformed, but could you describe the solar prize in more detail, like how it happens, etc.? Because
Yeah, if you're interested in it, so the Department of Energy runs contests.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, many government organizations run contests. If you're interested in any topic, specifically energy, the website is called Hero X.
Mm-hmm.
And the prize we participated in was one of many programs they have. But the American-made Solar Prize was intended to help innovate in the solar space. So anybody with an idea related to solar can apply with a video. Yeah, good job, Karl.
Thank
And
you so much for
Thank you.
and win money. The prize for the first round was $50,000
Mm-hmm.
in ours, and then it continued up to, how much could you get in the end, Karl?
It's $500,000.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we won the first round with about 12 other people. How many people made it through?
20 teams.
20 teams. Okay. So of, a couple hundred teams, we were one of 20, and then it continued on to the next two rounds, and we didn't make it into the final rounds, but we made it into the first cohort. So we got to see who made it through, and we were round 3. So there were 2 groups ahead of us, and then we were 3, and I believe they did 4, and I don't know if they've entered 5th.
Yeah, I don't think there was a 5th announced, so I think
there
they might.
are 4 groups, 4 contests, all with the similar prizes.
Mm.
And so if you're interested in innovating in the solar space, that's a really cool place to look for cool ideas. If you have an idea, feel free to participate. There's real money to be had, and you don't have to be super fancy. You just have to be a person with an idea.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's not just solar. If you're interested in any topic, there was some contests for things to do with the ocean and navigation. There were things to do with different kind of laboratory testing. There was like a desalination prize. There was one for robotics in retrofitting buildings. So there's lots of things if you're interested in these topics. The government's running all kinds of programs.
And I mean, it all ties into city planning, infrastructure, etc. So
Yeah.
yeah, those all should be very related.
Yeah. So feel free to browse the contests. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also in terms of the Equilibrium initiative, do you know if we could, contact some specific person, if we want to learn more, etc.? Just
Yeah.
because I mean, it seems like a very creative solution that they came up with.
Jody Slick is the person in charge of that program, and she's very talkative and very nice and wonderful. And I'm sure she would be happy to talk to you. If you would like an introduction, we can do that.
If possible, yes, that would be great.
So
Oh yeah, I found
Jody-
her
A lot of
on
things
the
she's,
website.
yeah, a lot of things she's doing sounds like it aligns with your guys' goals. It
Definitely.
should be a really great resource
Yeah,
and person
wow.
to chat with. And then that link that I sent under the Equilibrium 3 for Desire, it's
Yeah.
basically just like a list of all the type of incentives that are available in every region.
Oh
So-
yeah. Thank you. I see Minnesota. Wow, and Minnesota is big on solar.
Yeah. In DC too, like you guys actually have quite a bit there. You guys have net metering and looks like there's
Yeah.
some low income solar programs too.
There's been a lot of renewable activity recently. That's what also got us excited about the topic, that all these, local companies are coming through and they're all very active, very ready to collaborate. Many of them already work with the grid with Pepco, and we just want to see, how we can help to be a transition between them, kind of big as a mediator, and see what direction this could take. Because, I mean, especially in something integrated, any major policy change starts with the federal, and if DC can show that they can do it, then it could start trickling down to
Mhm.
state, local, whatever, right? And with these small time providers as well, that structure.
One thing that hasn't really been effective here, but I think would be good, is a lot of homeowners just struggle with the large capital expense.
Mm-hmm.
There are some forgivable loan programs here for other types of repairs, like a roof or siding or a furnace, where you can pay your bills for a certain period of time and eventually they forgive the loan or match your funds or something like that. It would be great to see stuff like that for solar.
Oh, and that's just not in the solar industry, but everywhere else. That's weird.
Well, solar isn't considered a required part of your house.
Yeah, which is a mistake, honestly, especially for some regions.
Well, I mean, you can survive without it. I think that's where the line is drawn.
That's true. Yeah. But if people are looking at efficiency, then
Well, the payback isn't great right now. If you install solar, at least for us, our payback is about the duration of the solar panel lifespan.
yeah.
You do it because you feel good about solar, not because it's a financial incentive.
Well, that varies per region. So
Right.
our electricity is very, very cheap for us. So we pay about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. The average for Minnesota, I think, is 12. DC is about 12. California, though, it's over 20. Hawaii is 30 cents. So areas where electricity is a lot more expensive, it makes a lot of sense. Vermont is another big solar hub too, just because their electricity is so expensive, but the payback is
Faster.
Yeah, 4 times faster than for us. And that makes a huge difference of adoption, just how expensive is electricity to begin with.
Well, yeah, I guess a lot of it is also with the grid with regulators. So
Do you so when I did those interviews with the solar installers, I wrote down my notes and included them in sort of like narrative format. Would it help you guys to have those?
Yes,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, for
that would
sure.
be
Any
awesome.
resource
That
we
would be
can get our
so
hands
cool.
on, yes.
That would be so
I
cool.
mean,
Our interviews
yeah,
were intended to answer questions specifically about product development. So you'll notice a lot of it's not relevant to your cause, but the questions about why solar isn't adopted might be relevant.
but
Yeah, for
still, you
sure.
know, that's even product development.
Yeah,
You
even
see,
product development.
you see the trend that each, you know, that local companies are taking, and then you can always pick and choose your provider, ask them what they have, you know, the realm of possibilities, advantages, disadvantages. If you can take an informed approach to, because we have a set amount of money, right? If if we have an informed approach about how to install something, when to install it, where it would make the most impact in DC, then from there you can kind of make it into a wave, and that would make the most possible impact. So I guess the more resources we can get, the happier we would be.
Sounds good. It does seem like the future of solar is probably combining the cost of a roof with the cost of solar, because the cost of a roof is already expensive, and if you were to able to spend a little bit more to get solar, it does seem like the shortest distance to success.
Hmm.
But there are not many good products yet, so it seems like soon there will be, and that will solve the problem.
So what would you say about the Tesla, you know, solar roof and similar incentives where they just integrate it? How does that play in?
We can't get that here, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's not available in our area.
Because it still looks very developing and like an elite market, but that doesn't mean it can't trickle in, you know. And I mean, since that whole idea was created, many others have tried to design similar concepts. So
Yeah.
that just makes you wonder what it's going to look like in, you know, 5 to 10 years again.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it moves fast.
yeah, for sure. But now what if let's say we have plans for installation, etc., but we want to just let's say spread our message and raise local awareness. So if you, as someone who dissipates information, if you were to raise some a local awareness about this, why it's good, how to get it, what providers to get, what to do, what rate to get, what's good if you do this, what's good if you do this, what is this type of battery slash system good for and not good for? How would you go about it? Like, what's the most, I guess, efficient way to diffuse information?
If that information was available, I think just good SEO and distributing the article to many, many places
Hmm.
would be a wonderful way to distribute the information. If you could somehow create a video, the Facebook algorithm, you know, Instagram, Twitter, all that, video is featured. So,
Hmm.
but I don't know if in my world, you would just spread it out as much as you can in a press release format and in social media and just try to make it go viral. But those resources are specific to a location. So it wouldn't be relevant to everybody.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And uh, I guess then what's the step to getting people, you know, just let's say that's interesting, from that to, you know, look at the website of a solar company, to contact them, etc.
So
Would
it's
you want to do it through companies, through the government, through, you know, schools?
so from our experience, the local power company actually loves anything kind of related to solar, or they love having their name attached to anything solar.
Hmm.
So whoever the local or whoever's working this that part of the division would be a really great contact. I forgot what the name of your power company was called, but they'd be a really good resource to talk to them and see if there's any type of like collaboration that you guys could do with them. Um, the
And they
local
have an audience that's captive. So connecting with them means you have an automatic audience. That's great, Karl.
Also the local TV stations too, you'd be surprised how easy it is to end up on TV. So if you were to hold some sort of event, that could be a good way to kind of spread the word about solar and any particular message you may have about it. There's this little like race that's meant for, I think middle school and high school. It's called the Junior Solar Sprint, where you buy like a little small solar panel and make a little car. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
Yeah,
or-
yeah, I think I've
Ah.
heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to
I've
like
come
a summer
across-
camp where we kind of had the same type of thing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so you could even hold like one of those events for people to race.
That's so sick. That's a great idea.
Yeah, race solar
Wow.
cars. That was something
Mhm.
they did here at one point, and I remember it being really fun.
Carl did a presentation locally too about solar, and we had a surprising attendance. Like it was the most well attended event that that group had done. And it seemed like people had a lot of questions about installing solar, and they just needed a place to go and ask those questions. So a presentation in a format like a TED Talk or a what was yours? It was like a science group. That was really effective here. We reached a lot of people.
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. That could be interesting to get through that. Huh.
I presented on the history of solar energy, and also mentioned like other stuff like, oh, if you're curious about what it's like to have solar in our region, if you have someone that you know that has solar on their house, just talking about the process, what it's like, what their power bill looks like, any surprises or just general questions. That's something that people seem to really liked having, just kind of someone to actually be like, hey, I have this question about this. I don't know anybody else with solar, and now I can get all my questions answered.
So kind of testimonials and spreading that into video form. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was like people were hungry for real information. Like, what does my power bill look like? How much does it cost? Because those costs are not always public. People don't talk about money. So just explaining the financials of solar and like how much does it cost? What should I expect my power bill to be?
Yeah,
Was very helpful for people. Otherwise, it's just a black box.
that's true. But overall, I mean, I'm sure there are many great opportunities, and it's not that solar is infeasible or even less of, detract from efficiency. It's that these thresholds. Would you agree that we have to jump over, either regulation or cost or something like that?
My opinion for the biggest hurdle for residential solar is the soft costs. So there's a lot of for like the actual equipment is maybe about 40% of the install cost for solar. So say you have a $10,000 system, 4,000 of it is all the solar panels, the inverter, and all that, and then 6,000 is the overhead for the company installing it. So that's the electricians or refers to install the system, their advertising costs, and whatever else. That's the part that's really expensive at the moment. So solar in itself is pretty cheap. It's the soft costs that
Yeah.
are really hard, and that nobody seems to have cracked it quite yet. Maybe Tesla, but I still haven't actually heard that many people actually get Tesla
Yeah,
installed.
we'll
though.
see how it goes. I
Yeah.
mean,
If they
it
hold out their
takes a while.
promises, it's exciting.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you very much. I think we have to go soon, but if it would be possible, we would really appreciate if you could send us those kind of responses from the providers, and if it would be possible to get us into contact with Judy Slick and just to learn about how she implemented that, how she made it work, what works, what doesn't in this case. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of that knowledge would really help us jump over some obstacles and do much more than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah, there's no reason you have to do it a second time. Some people have already worked on this problem for a while.
Exactly, yeah. You could stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, thank you both so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's
Very
no problem at
eye-opening.
all. Yeah, it's great to hear that you guys are working on this, especially starting out. Because are you guys in high school?
Yeah, high school.
Yeah, we're
juniors.
juniors.
Yeah, so that's really exciting getting started this early on it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, hopefully, that will help us get further and spread more awareness and maybe cause some change if we're lucky. But thank you very much. We're really grateful. And if possible, we'd really appreciate these resources. And that would just help us, by months of trial and error, just, and then it's right to the strategies of, people who spend their work on it in their lives.
We can do that, no problem. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Don't be afraid. We're very informal, so don't be scared.
Thank you.
Yeah, also, before we go, is it okay if I just take a screenshot of all of us?
Oh yeah,
Go for it.
because we're trying to
Yeah.
make an Instagram, with all the to see who we talk to, etc. But okay, ready?
Yeah, okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, I got it. Thank you. That was awesome.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, those resources, they're lifesaver. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck on your project. If you need to run anything by us, feel free.
Oh, we sure will. And if you ever need any help, with a blog or something, or even our experience, we could make a video or write a blog post, something like that.
So our blog so far has been community driven. If you have something you want to write about, please submit it.
Oh, that's
Okay, yeah, for sure. And we could even, after all of this, record our experience and see what we could share about how you do this, how you do that, how it works here,
Feel free. If we like articles that are how to. Anna Keta, her articles are based on her experience, and she's a community member that is contributing. You could be a contributor too. There's no limit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will definitely reach out. Thank you. Bye.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.